You know, I often pride myself on not being easily swayed, but even the best of us have to fall to peer pressure every once in a while. If you're new here, I'm Rian, a Christ-following wife and a homeschool mom to 3 boys. Here we talk all things homeschool, and we will learn together how to use our roles as wife, mom, teacher, and homemaker in order to glorify God. So this is a collaboration hosted by my friend Katie over at Life in the Mundane, and she does this, I think, once a year, and she has us share what YouTube made us buy. And so whether that be curriculum or just resources, or whatever it may be for your homeschool, these are things that we watched a YouTube video on or saw someone on YouTube talking about, and we were just like, we've got to have it. So make sure you check out her channel down below, and I'll also link the playlist where you can watch through what everyone else was just forced to buy by watching YouTube. Well, mine has a little bit of a twist. So like I said in the intro, I am not easily swayed. Once I find something that I like, I just stick to it. And you can show me all your flashy and new things, but I'm typically just like, oh, that's really cool. Maybe I should have done that. Oh, well, what I have's working, it's fine. Which can be a good or bad thing, because sometimes I need to be swayed. Sometimes something really isn't working and I'm just pushing too hard to make it work. So there's pros and cons to both sides. So that being said, because I'm not easily swayed, a lot of these channels that I'm going to reference are no longer creating content because these were things that I decided to purchase a long time ago. So we're talking like 4+ years ago, a lot of them 5, 6 years ago, sometimes 7 years ago. And so a lot of these creators, even though they were larger channels, some of them are just no longer doing YouTube. However, all of them I've checked still have their YouTube videos up, so you can still check out their videos. It's still good content. They may not have, you know, the newest levels of whatever because they haven't been on here in a while, but it's still really good content. And so if I mention a channel, please don't be afraid to go check them out, even if they're no longer creating. But I do have a few channels that I will mention that still are creating too. So my twist is I'm going to share with you the good, the bad, and the ugly that YouTube has made me buy. So the good is obviously stuff that I bought and use and love and am so thankful for. The bad is stuff that I won't say that I wish I wouldn't have tried, but really was kind of just a no-go for me. Maybe I learned something in the process, but just really something that didn't work. And then the ugly, well, you're just gonna have to see when we get there, because there's 2 different things in that category and they're both in there for very different reasons. So let's get started. Okay, as far as the good. Now, if you hear me say this, you're gonna go, duh, because it's my thing, Saxon math. So Saxon math is something that I used when I was in elementary school, middle school age. And so when I started homeschooling, I saw that that was a homeschool curriculum, and I'm like, oh, great, sounds good. I knew nothing about homeschool, guys. 0. And so I was like, hey, I've heard of that. It worked for me. It'll work for my kid. And so I bought it. But I've never gone back. So that was when my oldest was in kindergarten, and he's now in 6th grade. So that's 7 years of Saxon math that we've loved. Now, I won't say, like I said, I just was Googling homeschool math curriculums, right? And so the Kathy Duffy lists come up. And so I was reading through all those, getting very overwhelmed. I'm like, Saxon, I recognize that name. So I can't say that YouTube is the one that introduced me to Saxon, but I can say I further went and researched it on YouTube after I'd been using it a couple years, because I'm like, wait, what's this going to look like in older grades? I don't know that I can still hang on to this once it gets, you know, a little more advanced. But what I did is I YouTubed it, and Candace over at Homeschool on a Hill kept coming up, and she had all boys like I have, and she used a lot of Saxon math, and she just gave me the confidence to know, like, it's okay to be the weird one, because I know not very many people love Saxon like I do. And so I was like, am I missing something? Should I not be doing this? Is there something that, you know, is way better out there? But she just gave me the confidence that if it's working, and it's a good, solid curriculum, so just use it. Now, Candace is one of those channels that is unfortunately no longer around. She was my absolute favorite homeschool resource channel. I don't know if it's because I could relate to her with her 3 boys or what, but she was just very likable. But her channel is still up, so feel free to go look at her old content. My second good thing that YouTube made me buy is mathematical reasoning. Now this I did first see on a YouTube video, and I believe it was Purposeful Homeschool. Now her channel, I don't think is still functioning either. I was never an avid watcher of her channel. What I saw, I liked, but I wasn't like an avid follower, so I don't believe she's still on there. If she is, it's not very often. But I just saw in one of her curriculum picks videos that she mentioned that and that she really loved it, and she kind of plugged it a little bit. And I was like, ooh, I need to look into that. And I looked more into it and I was like, oh yes, this is what I need. So that is what you're like, wait, you're a Saxon user and you're mathematical reasoning? No. For preschool, because there is no Saxon preschool, my preschooler is using mathematical reasoning. Not to say we might not switch and go to it at a later date. Doubtful, but we might. But for preschool, it is like super, super good. And it's a very different approach to math than what I'm used to, but in a good way. I love it. And then my third in this good category is Sunlight. And so I first heard of Sunlight, I don't even know where. Like, it's kind of a big brand. I've seen many, many, many YouTube videos about it, and I've seen many reviews and all the things. But someone that made it really appealing to me was Rachel over at Day to Day Joys. And she rarely posts. She used to be pretty active on YouTube, and I haven't seen her around in a while. So I don't know if she's gone for good or just taking a break, but she hasn't been there in a while. But her content also very, very good. She is a super, super sweet lady too. But she just made Sunlight sound magical. And really it is. It is. And I don't say that lightly because I'm not a rainbows and fluffy kind of girl. But just sitting down and reading books that we enjoy and learning from them, like for a bookworm with some bookworm children, that is like what more could you ask for? So she's the one that just made it sound super appealing. Some other people would talk about it and I'm like, that sounds overwhelming. Like, they have all these book lists. I'm like, how on earth do you read all those books in a year? But she made it seem like it's manageable and it's fun, and it is, both of those things. Now on to the bad. So there's only one thing that falls in this category. And if you've been around anytime at all, I bet you can guess what I'm going to say. And this is the good and the beautiful. Just like Sunlight, it's everywhere. I don't think YouTube officially introduced me to it or anything. But where I saw it getting a lot of traction was over at Jamie Kite's channel. And I saw it over at Simple Joy-Filled Living, which is with Colleen. And I've known her for a while, and she's very, very sweet, and it works amazingly for her. And so I was like, oh, you know what? I can do this. I can do this. And it just wasn't a match for me personally. There's nothing like glaringly bad about it. I just personally did not care for it at all. Now, I cannot speak for all of their curriculum. I have only ever used their handwriting and their language arts. Their handwriting was fine. It just wasn't really what I wanted it to be. Their language arts, meh. I know a lot of people love it, and I am not dissing anyone who loves it. Okay, so let's not start the hate comments. But it just wasn't for me. It was very, very fluffy for my liking. And I know some people who love that. It just didn't work for me. And it was very, in my opinion, like scattered. Like, it was just like, oh, a little of this here, a little of that there. It didn't really follow any sort of plan that I could see. Now, that being said, something good came of this. So I was looking to step away from writing with skill and writing with ease. I really, really, really love that method. I really, really love that whole line of curriculum. My boys just, it wasn't working for them. And it wasn't for lack of trying. It wasn't clicking with them. And I don't think that there's really any one curriculum that works for everyone across the board. I just really don't. And so that's what sent me on the hunt for new curriculum. And that's what led me to the Good and the Beautiful Language Arts. But when I didn't like that, I had several commenters. So here is your plug. I had several commenters ask me, why don't you just do Sunlight Language Arts if you love Sunlight History and Bible so much? And I was like, why don't I just do that? I don't know why. It had never been on my radar to just also do Sunlight Language Arts. And so YouTube, in a way, made me buy that, because that is what we're using this year for the first time for both my 6th grader and 4th grader. And so far it's going great. It's still a much different approach than what I prefer. But like I said, the approach that I prefer is not the approach that works with my boys. So right now this is clicking with them. And even though it's kind of like the Good and the Beautiful in the sense that it kind of jumps around, I don't see the straight line progression that I'd like to see. It's a lot less flowery, and it works with literature that we're already using in our core curriculum anyway. So it's like 2 birds, 1 stone. And it just helps to drive home that stuff that we're already learning in history and in their independent reading anyway. So thank you, viewers. So the first in this ugly category, and you'll see why I say it's ugly, the curriculum itself is not ugly, but is classical conversations memory work. And so I first heard about this just by Googling. There are several communities close to where I live, and so it pops up a lot when you Google co-ops and stuff like that. And so I had looked into it already before I even consulted YouTube. But Joy over at Joy Filled Living, which again is not a channel that is currently up and running, but it's still up and there's still content that is very beneficial. So if you want to check her out, go ahead. But she was part of CC and she made it seem like this is it. This is what I'm missing. And it didn't exactly work like that. My oldest was in kindergarten and I really thought we had to have that co-op and everything. We needed that community and all the things, which was kind of true, but I was kind of obsessing over it a little bit. And we were getting ready to pull the plug on classical conversations. And I'm just like, this is a lot of money. What if it doesn't work? Like, I don't know that I can hand over that much money in 1 year. And this is when we were, really not well off. And I was like, I just don't know that I can hand over that much money on a chance that it might not work. And so we ended up not doing it, but I went ahead and bought the memory work guide and all the things like that. And I was like, we can just do it at home as much as possible. I don't highly recommend that. I think it can be done, but I think the community aspect of CC is really where it's at. And so we just weren't getting as much out of it as I wanted to. Now, this is where it gets ugly. I, in my brain, was so obsessed over, I want my kid to be like those memory master kids, right? If you know anything about CC, they have kids who memorize, the timeline and all the history facts and all the math facts and all the things and recite them and they're memory masters or something. I don't know. It's something like that. And in my brain, I was like, I need my kid to be that. That's what I want my kid to be. I love this classical model. I love classical education. My kid's got to do this. And without the community, and probably even with the community, he wouldn't have necessarily been a memory master, okay? But I just felt like a failure. And so in my own head, the curriculum's not ugly, but in my own head, things got ugly. I was like, why can't I do this? Why isn't classical education working for my family? And I kept getting so frustrated. And then I just finally felt the release to, Ryan, take this curriculum. You're not in a community. You don't have to do all of it. Take it and look at what is helpful and useful and what is clicking with your kids and run with it and forget the rest. Like, it doesn't matter. And so then that was very freeing. Again, I know lots of people who use it. I know lots of homeschool mamas that use it. I think Dina over at Pursuing Peace uses it. She loves it. Like, it is a solid classical method with great communities. It's for some people and it's not for some people, right? Just what it requires and stuff, it doesn't fit in some people's schedules. So it just got ugly in my own brain. It wasn't the curriculum itself. And the last thing in my ugly category I'm putting in here because it's actually ugly. Like, you look at it and you're like, ooh, that's not very cute. But I couldn't go on YouTube Made Me Buy It without mentioning Katie herself over at Life in the Mundane and how she made me buy my rainbow cart. So this thing is an eyesore. There's a reason why it is in my laundry room where no one sees it. It's also in there because it houses all of my art supplies right now. And I have a toddler and I have nieces and nephews who have very busy hands. And so it has to stay hidden behind a door. But also because it's ugly. But I saw these on Katie's channel like years ago. And I was like, man, I love that system. Because I don't remember what she was doing at the time or even if she still has it organized the same way. However she had it organized, I was like, I could do that. I like that. I shopped and I was looking for those, waiting for deals. And then I just couldn't ever pull the trigger. I was like, there's just always a little bit more that I want to spend. And so finally one day there was one at Aldi of all places. I was doing my regular grocery shopping, look over, I see one and I was like, ooh, okay. Talked to my husband. I was like, oh, I just don't know. Came back the next week. There was only one left and they had marked it down. And I don't remember what I paid for it, but it was like half of what the original cost was of it. And so I was like, sold. And I never ended up using it like Katie used it, but I use it for my art supplies and I love it. There's a little drawer for paints. There's a drawer for leftover pencils. There's a drawer for googly eyes and pom-poms. There's a drawer for scrap paper. There's a drawer for all of the stickers and all the things. So thank you, Katie, for that recommendation. And obviously Katie's channel is still up and running, so definitely check her out. But that is definitely on the ugly list, but I love it anyway. Hopefully this is helpful for you to, find some new resources, new curriculum, maybe some new channels that you've never heard of. Even if they're no longer kicking out new content, you can still go check out their old content because it's really good. Let me know down below, what has YouTube made you buy? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.